Okay, greetings and welcome everyone. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us today. And I would have to say, this is one of the most highly anticipated panels that I've ever had the opportunity to host. I am Mindy, first and foremost. I'm the newest host of BDO, and I couldn't be more excited to be sitting with the top dermatologists in the country, giving us skin and hair beauty tips and basically our own personal dermatology appointment. The amount of questions that we have received have been unlimited. And I think it's extremely admirable that more people and more women around the world want to be more comfortable in their natural state. So I'm very excited to host this panel. I'm going to do my best to get to those top most wanted questions. And feel free to leave comments if there's anything you guys feel that was unanswered, and we'll try our best to get to you. So I would love to bring the doctors on now, if we could. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules and giving us our own personal dermatology session today. So I'm really excited. If we can just go around briefly, just a brief round table, and just give a name and a title so that our audience is able to address you, ladies.
Guess I'll start. Hi, BDO family. I'm Dr. Michelle Henry. I am a dermatologist based in Manhattan, New York, where I do all things dermatology, so skincare, aesthetics, skin cancer surgery, and I am thrilled to be here with my amazing colleagues and Mindy. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Yolanda Lindsay, dermatologist based in Massachusetts, owner of Lindsay Dermatology and Hair Loss Center, where I specialize in the treatment of hair loss and scalp disorders, but I also practice general dermatology, and happy to be here with you all today.
Right.
Hi,
Welcome.
I'm Dr. Brooke Jackson, board certified dermatologist. I am the owner of Skin Wellness Dermatology Associates in Durham, North Carolina, and I help women in their middle years look and feel their best by teaching them about their hair and skin, and happy to be here as well.
All right, welcome. So I think we are with the doctors that we need to be speaking with, and let's start our appointment. Are you ladies ready? Because I am so excited. So first and foremost, let's just address the elephant in the room, okay? Let's just get right to it. Our hair and our skin is, in fact, different. Yes, would you agree? And we want to hear that from you. If your answer is yes, I would like you guys to point us in the direction of those differences. Anyone can go.
Some of the differences that I'm just going to repeat the question. Some of the differences that Black women should consider when looking for products.
Mm-hmm. And our hair, is our hair in fact different than other ethnic groups?
Yes. I'll let Dr. Lindsay start. I think that one of the unique, beautiful things about being a woman of color is that our hair is different. And because it is different, it does require additional care, additional consideration when we're thinking about treatments, when we're thinking about retention of our hair in order to keep it healthy and, grow it in whatever way that you would like it. I think that hydration is absolutely critical. Thinking about the fact that, oftentimes our hair can tend to be a little bit drier. So when we are using products, they tend to stay on our scalp longer. So thinking about the ingredients that we're using, because we have more contact with them, I would say than many others. I think there are lots of considerations, but I will let some of the others jump in as well.
Absolutely. Please.
Sure. In terms of our hair, there have been a lot of studies showing that ethnic hair has higher fragility, or it's more fragile. So our hair is more prone to breakage, even with the same amount of tension that, say, Caucasian and Asian hair may withstand. Our hair is more easily to break. So that definitely has implications when you go to style your hair, detangling the hair. We should be very gentle, starting at the ends, working our way to the root, not breaking the hair apart, to detangle. All of those things definitely need to be considered.
The other thing I would add is just looking at the panel, the versatility of our hair. So everyone here has a different hairstyle, and we have the option of doing a lot with our hair, which is a pro and a con. And so
Absolutely.
sometimes we do a little too much, which is why we end up in offices. So I think this is a
True.
great panel to discuss about how to manage our hair and make sure that it is being treated gently and carefully. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, any talk
I,
on it?
yeah, I like that. I'd like to also underscore the
Too.
fact that the language we use around our hair, we often
Mm-hmm.
describe our hair as being tough or hard and all of these
Mm-hmm.
things, and that's really inaccurate. You know, our hair is
Mm-hmm.
exquisitely sensitive and delicate.
Mm-hmm.
It really requires a gentle hand to flourish, and so I think
Mm-hmm.
the language we use around our hair is really critical. And to think of your hair as precious and delicate and soft because it is, and it often requires more care than other hair types.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly why I wanted to kind of open with that question, just to kind of state the obvious. And the doctors, you guys definitely covered that. Now, me, I want to speak for myself in this case, and probably a lot of women across the country where we set our medical appointments, right? We have our, annuals. A dermatology appointment is not one of the appointments that we set. So we're going to be, teaching women that are watching this. Number one, why should we start doing that? Why do we only do it when a problem occurs? We have a breakout, or all of a sudden, maybe something's going different with our hair. We don't understand. We don't know why, but we don't set our dermatologist appointments regularly. So what can women start learning from a dermatologist and to get that in motion as we, set our regular appointments?
So the one thing I would mention is that our skin is our largest organ, and it covers all of our internal organs. And so we tend not to think of it actually as an organ, but it often will show how we are feeling on the inside. It is an immune system organ. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the challenges that we have all noticed, especially during this period of COVID, when our immune system is not functioning very well, our skin does not function very well. And so
Wow.
all of us have been crazy busy as far as patients who've had chronic conditions, acne, eczema, psoriasis, hair loss. All of these things have been exacerbated over the last couple of years, really because our immune system is not functioning very well, and our skin shows that. It also shows what's
Um,
going on inside of our bodies. And so all of us can walk in a room and look at a patient and say, you know what, maybe you should get your thyroid checked, or let's check you for diabetes. And so our skin really does, it's a window to what
oh,
goes inside and our overall health.
Yeah. And I want to say,
wow.
I love that point as well because we often call ourselves the skin investigators because
Right.
it tells so much about our other systems. And I think there's often been like resistance to dermatology. It's thought of as a luxury, it's thought of as aesthetic, and it absolutely is not. It's a part of, holistically caring for yourself and making
That's right.
sure. And, every touch point with the medical system is really important because
Mm-hmm.
there are obviously errors. There are people that are trained in different ways. And every time you encounter a physician, it's an opportunity for us to catch something that maybe someone else didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my patients think that, oh, I have melanin, I'm not going to have skin cancer. Why else do I come in? Well, there are other skin cancers that are not induced by UV light, so there are a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things that we can catch. And part of why our outcomes tend to be worse in many areas, it's because we miss those touch points and we find
Mm-hmm.
things later on. And so it's really important to think of your skin as every other organ, something critical to assess. And beyond that, I think about things like acne. Growing up, my sister had horrible acne. We
Right.
never treated it. She's still struggling with the scars from that. And as a kid, now being a dermatologist, I never even thought that a doctor treated acne. It was just not something
Right.
that even came to my mind. And obviously, my parents. And so, there are many, many avenues where we can help, and many things that we should not think of as a luxury, that there are true health conditions that can change you both physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Guidance,
And
right?
Absolutely.
I
also
was just
from a
Go
practical
ahead,
perspective.
Dr. Nina.
good, Yolanda. Good.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, also
Mm-hmm.
from a practical perspective, a reason to see a dermatologist early would be to avoid spending a lot of unnecessary money. I see so many
Mm-hmm.
patients come in with bags and bags of hair products and skincare products that really are trash. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
guiding them direction. And so if they would have come in earlier, they could have not only saved time, like Dr. Michelle mentioned, like say their acne, and now they have permanent scars, but with hair loss, many of them are spending 6 months, 12 months trying things that they heard about on YouTube. And the problem is exacerbating all this time and they were already spent money, and now they're coming in and I'm telling them about some new things that they need to spend money on. So coming in early and often will often, practically save us money and save us precious time that we can't get back.
And
Well,
also
go ahead.
being more preventative rather than reactive. So
There you go.
we are here to guide you. And dermatologists, first of all, we're real doctors. A lot of people believe that dermatologists are, beauty experts, which we are. But at the end of the day, all of us went to medical school. And so that means we've gone to undergrad, we've gone to medical school, we then did an internship, and then we've all done a 3-year residency. And so we are the skin, hair, and nail experts. And so if you want to get an answer faster, you go to the experts. This is no disrespect on our primary care doctor. We all serve a purpose, but we focus on issues of the skin, hair, and nails. And so often we can make a diagnosis much more quickly because that is how we are trained. We are very visual. We are looking at people from the moment you walk in the door to what's going on.
You already know.
Like even when
every setting,
we got this. I'm not working right now. So no, you want to kind of get the answer, you come to the experts, and so that's why we are here.
I love it, and I'm sold already. But you touch base on something that I'm going to jump into. But on the scale of the appointment, we hear a lot about skin types. We really don't know what that means. A lot of women, I don't think, know what skin types mean. So when we come to our appointment and you are giving us our diagnosis and you can tell, right away what we're dealing with, how does skin types come up at all in that conversation that you have with your patients? Or is that just kind of something that, a mythical terminology that gets used?
I think skin types come up, but they're not as prescriptive, I guess, as we would think. So there are many ways to kind of categorize skin. So you may have heard of like the Fitzpatrick skin type, which tells us loosely about your skin tone, right? It's an imperfect scale, but something we use to gauge one's response to UV light, and then we kind of extrapolate from that how they may respond to trauma and other inflammatory things we do to the skin, either through treating patients or that might occur through disease. And then we talk about skin types in terms of oily, normal, combination, sensitive. That's important as well. And so we use that information to kind of categorize with each and every patient. There are many permutations of that, right? So each and every patient still requires that really individualized, personalized approach. But we're talking about those other skin types. If you're oilier, that's kind of genetic. Oily and dry is genetic. The amount of oil that you produce is genetic. Of course, there are things like hormones and other things in our environment that can contribute to that. But at your baseline, that's typically your genetic propensity. Whether you're sensitive also tends to be a genetic propensity. Of course, there are things that can sensitize you. So there are things that are situational and things that are you, and that's our job to kind of figure out exactly what it is, what situation, what is your baseline, and come up with a treatment plan that can really take into consideration all of those differences.
Right.
I'm going to take the opposite approach. I don't really subscribe to skin types at all. We don't live in a box, and every patient is different. And I think the danger in putting a label on somebody is that your skin type can technically change, right? So I live in the South now. Everybody gets much more oily during the summer months. I used to live in Chicago. Everybody's super duper dry during the winter time. So come in, in July and somebody says you're an oily skin type and you live in Chicago in the wintertime, that is absolutely not going to be true. And so everything is, you have to kind of put it in perspective. But at the end of the day, that is one of the reasons that dermatologists are so valuable. Is that, again, we can guide you and we can create treatment programs for you based on what you, the person, are, rather than searching online for, I've got oily skin, so therefore these are the things I need to use. Not
Mm-hmm.
everything is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's got very, very oily skin, but very sensitive skin. And so
Mm-hmm.
oily products tend to be a little bit more harsh, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to be great for him. He needs something that is made more for sensitive skin.
Very, very important.
And
Very, very
I'll
important. Dr.
extrapolate that in
Yolanda?
Yeah, I'll extrapolate that over into the hair world. I definitely don't subscribe to the hair typing system that is all the rage in the internet. That if you have this 4C, or that's the one that everyone thinks they have, that you need
Mm-hmm.
to use these certain types of products. And that typing system was made by a stylist in the 90s that was very popular, but
Mm-hmm.
it really does not have a lot of practical implications in terms of an individual and what an individual particularly needs. And so that's why I'm glad that you're doing this. Black Doctor is doing this panel to
Mm-hmm.
really,
Mm-hmm.
change the narrative, change the language. That so many people get caught up in. I have this hair type, so therefore I need, this particular,
Mm-hmm.
type of treatment, and that's not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
the case.
And that's exactly why, these are the conversations that we want to have so we can get to the bottom and why we should actually be doing this. So, Dr. Brooke had mentioned something about brands. Okay. So, again, I want to bring up, some of these popular brands that are actually out there, right? And we try to tackle the problems with our skin or with our hair on our own at home. So, what are some of those popular brands that we run to, right? There's Dove, there's Aveeno, that's a popular one, Neutrogena. Okay, so when I say those products, what comes to your mind? Do you say, tell us the background to those products because I'm sure they're used often. So, what do you guys think?
So it's interesting with all of these products, which, at some level, I congratulate them for trying to include diversity, right?
Mhm.
So, um, again, not everything is for everybody, and you don't necessarily need to be brand loyal, right? So it is okay for you to use, a Dove cleanser and an Aveeno moisturizer. It's okay, depending on what it is that you feel is doing well for your skin. And, I think I would speak for all of us that no one is brand loyal, nor should you be, right?
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it's fine to mix and match. Now, this is not what any company would want you to know.
Okay.
They want you to buy everything from every product line, every SKU, but
Mhm.
that puts you in a box. And so you really do have to customize products. Vaseline, gotta love it, right? Vaseline's been around for a million years. It's a great
Years.
moisturizer. I love it for, even eye moisturizers too, the first wrinkle cream Vaseline. And so,
Mhm.
and so there are many, many, all of these different brands have SKUs that would be appropriate for an over the counter product for
Mhm.
just about every skin type.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think of the brands as just a category, I like vegetables, but I like beets more than I like broccoli, so it's kind of
Perfect.
like, and not every, and that's why we have a robust market, because not every brand does everything perfectly. And so, yeah, I would argue against just committing to a brand, because you're missing out on things that might be better for you. I actually, something that I don't like is I'll tell a patient a product I like for a brand, and then they come back with everything from that brand, and I'm like, that's not what I said
Yeah.
to do. I'm giving you a very personalized approach. And so, yeah, it's there. Of course, if you're thinking about brands, you may like their brand story. You may like their commitment to being cruelty free. You may like the fact that this brand doesn't use parabens or whatever for whatever reason. And so that
Mhm.
might be a reason to align with a brand, but you should really look at specific products that suit your specific needs.
Mhm. Great point. Dr. Yolanda?
Yeah, I would definitely say I definitely mix and match between product lines, and also consider high and low. Many of us dermatologists recommend premium skincare products for certain things, and then there are certain things that I will use drugstore lines. So when you look at look at antioxidants, I tend to use those as more of a premium product because of how they're formulated, how they're packaged. Whereas cleansers, I tend to use more drugstore. So I think a dermatologist can really guide you in curating a specific skincare regimen for you. So that's the kind of take
Mm-hmm.
home message here, is to get a curated blend of things that will work for you, because it's going to save you time, it's going to save you
Mm-hmm.
money, and it's going to be more effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also to touch on a couple of sort of package of a couple of questions that have come up is, why don't people see dermatologists? The perception that dermatologists are expensive. Again, we will save you money. Number two is be honest with your dermatologist really about what your budget is.
Mm-hmm.
If we can create something for you that is a drugstore, curated line if that's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely for teenagers and college students, that is often what I will do. I live in Chapel Hill, which is a college town. And
Mm-hmm.
so, to Dr. Yolanda's point, there definitely are some things that you probably want to spend a little bit more, save
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more. So the splurge and spend, have that conversation. Because if we can get you one hero product where you may spend a little bit more money, the reason it's going to cost more is, number one, it's effective. So one product can actually take care of all of the stuff that you
One
bought,
and done.
wrong choices.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes patients will be surprised at the sticker shock. But when, again, we look at all of the money that you've already wasted, you should have no problem spending, that same amount of money for one product that's actually going to do what you actually wanted all these other 5 things to do that didn't do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Because, I mean, for me, it doesn't seem like you're shaming those products, so to speak. Save the money, find out which product is best first, get the analyzation, and then go out and do the purchasing or take the recommendation. So the questions that I have, like I said, they were unlimited, but I think it's appropriate to go from here into diet now, because it's come up a few times. And you guys mentioned when a patient comes into your office as doctors, you guys almost know instantly. You zoom in on, what's going on. Tell us a little bit about that and how diet can implicate the reactions that our skin has, because that's a popular controversial thing as well, where we definitely need more education in that area.
So I'm very big on,
It's an area that needs more.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm very big on the anti-inflammatory approach. Every disease process that we have, whether it's in the skin or within our body, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, high blood pressure, it is all inflammatory in nature.
Mm-hmm.
So the anti-inflammatory diet, that means less dairy, fewer processed foods, all of the things that we know we should be doing, but we keep trying to find an excuse not to do it. At the end of at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
it's still the same. Get your sleep, eat healthy. Again, immune system boosters. Our skin is a large portion of our immune system. So everything we need to do for our immune system is likely going to benefit your skin. Mental
Mm-hmm.
health. I know there's a mental health panel during this day. We have a lot of patients. There's a huge overlap between dermatology and psychiatry. And so
Mm-hmm.
all have had patients that pick at their skin, their hair is falling out because they're stressed, so all of these things together as one. So it's not just skin, it's not one product. It's looking at our bodies as a whole, and our skin is representative of what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
I I would like to say as well, I think that it's an area, and I think that Dr. Lindsay kind of mentioned this initially. It's an area that we definitely need more research. We need more people invested in understanding the role, likely huge role that nutrition plays in our skin. But I also agree with the inflammatory as well. I think many patients know that when they have more dairy, they see more acne. That's something that's really, really common. Sometimes and it's another area that needs more research, but I will often recommend that, as Dr. Brooks said, all the things we know that we shouldn't eat, those are the bad things. Those sugar, we know that
Mm-hmm.
anything that kind of will cause our insulin to kind of spike can also make our pores stickier. So sticking to a
Mm-hmm.
healthy, well-balanced diet is just going to be important for all aspects of health. But I'd love to see a lot more research in this area because I think our nutrition probably plays a much larger role than we know already. I know there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of derms and nutritionists and scientists of all sorts of backgrounds and disciplines looking at this, and hopefully we'll know more soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Dr. Yolanda, anything to add to that?
I get the question a lot in terms of hair loss. Patients ask, "What should I eat to help my hair?" And as everyone mentioned, we need much more research. But I tell patients the things that we know that will help your heart health are the same things that could potentially help your hair. So just do all the
Mm-hmm.
things. It's not
Mm-hmm.
enough just to work on your diet, but working
Mm-hmm.
on your diet won't hurt. So some people
Mm-hmm.
will say, "I just want to eat juices and berries to help my hair loss." And while
Mm-hmm.
I want you to eat the juices and berries, I don't think it's enough, but it's a good addition to the regimen. So I say do all the things. Do the medical approach. Do work on your diet. Drink your water. Get your sleep. Meditate.
Mm-hmm.
Pray. Do all the
Mm-hmm.
things. Because they can all work
All,
together.
all of the above.
Yeah.
I love this information, lady. So, this is hair and skin. So I want to talk a little bit about hair too. A lot of viewers are watching, maybe want to know a little bit more about hair. And it came up in your conversation, Dr. Lindsay, or Dr. Yolanda, I'm sorry, in regards to hair loss and prevention. So we are, in a world now where there's a lot of makeup constantly. There's a lot of protective styling, which is fantastic, I believe, but a lot more, you know, different things that women use, which is fine, to each his own, wigs and things of that nature. But what are the preventative things that we can do during, they say letting your hair breathe, right? Um, what should we be doing in that state when we're not wearing our wigs and we want to prevent our hair from breaking and prevent our hair from being damaged so that maybe we can wear wigs less? Um, Elaborate a little bit on hair loss and preventative methods, if you will.
Sure. I'll start by, you just mentioned the term protective styling. So I'll start with
Mhm.
that elephant in the room because I don't
Uh-huh.
really love that term because
Okay.
um, when something is protective, to me, that means that there are no negative or untoward effects. And we know
Mhm.
that that's just not the case. This style that I'm wearing now is for my vacation that I'm on currently in Hawaii. But what I
Mhm.
see with a lot of patients who wear braids, they wear them consistently. For example, they will have braids in for 3 months, take them out to shampoo and put them right back in, and take
Oh,
them out and put them right back in. And so that repetitive tension and weight on the follicles can definitely be something that can increase the risk of traction alopecia as well as certain forms of scarring alopecia. So I am a fan of rotational hairstyling. So I tell patients it's okay to enjoy certain hairstyles the same way we enjoy fried chicken at sometimes. We can't eat fried chicken all the time, but we can enjoy it on Christmas and Mother's Day and the like. But it's important to, in general, wear our hair in styles that are low tension, that allow us to shampoo and cleanse our scalps every 7 to 10 days. That sometimes for patients is like, that's too much. But that's really going to be what we need to really prevent a lot of inflammatory scalp conditions like seborrheic dermatitis or inflammatory dandruff. So like loose twists, twist outs, wash and goes, styles like that, I think are important as foundational styles, and then we can add additional styles and as a special treat. I definitely saw questions in the comments around what should I do for alopecia. And the first thing I say, patients say, what should I go buy? I say, nothing. Go buy a diagnosis. You want to use that money for your copay and get a
Mhm.
diagnosis because that's the most important thing when you're dealing with hair loss. You need to be able to name it. You need to know the first name and last name. So is it alopecia areata? Is it central centrifugal cicatricial alopecia? All these things are important because they are all
Yeah.
different forms, they're different conditions. And because we think about hair loss as one thing, it's not one thing. It's important to have a diagnosis so that you can get, again, a tailored, curated treatment approach. And so if you take nothing else away from the hair loss section, just that, spend the money, spend the time to get a diagnosis so that you can go on the right path and not waste time and money and
I think I
follicles.
I think I was today years old when I learned all of this about the hair braiding. I think that was the most important question of the evening. Please continue on, ladies.
So the other thing that I would really encourage people, and Dr. Yolanda mentioned this, is just frequency of hair washing. We have patients who come in and they are wearing these styles and like her, I don't like that word protective. I call it convenient hairstyle. They're not protective. But you know, the analogy that I will also often give to a patient is your scalp needs to be washed just like your body is washed. And you would not go 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks without washing your body. So you cannot go that long and not wash your scalp and think you're not going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And so really at the outer limit, 2 weeks, I'll buy 3, but you know, every 10 to 14 days, you got to get in there and get it clean.
Get it clean.
A healthy scalp.
I would also say that comes up a lot in my office as well. You know, a lot of patients will say, "Oh, I wash every month." I think that's too infrequent as well. I like 7 to 10, 14 at maximum. I would also say that I have a lot of patients that will come in, they'll have braids, and they think that just kind of losing their edges after braids is just a consequence of braids, and the hair will always grow back. And I always tell them that it won't. It's kind of like your boyfriend. If you're mean to him a few times, or girlfriend, he may come back, but eventually he's not going to come back. And so don't take people or follicles for granted, because they're not always going to come back. And so it's something that we're always pushing, but it's not guaranteed to grow back, because it truly can become scarring with time.
The other thing I would say is if you see something, say something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So far too often, I think all of us have seen these heartbreaking patients where, you know, they walk in the room, they take off the wig, and, you know, there's this huge area of hair loss. And you ask them how long this has been going on, and they say for 10 years. I'm like, where have you been? You know, and so you do have to have a conversation with your stylists. And, you know, if there are any stylists on here, I would also say if you see something, say something, right? So sometimes I think stylists believe that it's their fault if they tell a patient that their scalp is red, but you're looking at the top of their head and they can't see it. And so if you see some redness, some irritation, it's okay to suggest that they go see a dermatologist, because we can intervene more earlier and perhaps change the course of the outcome. But once we get to a point where it's been going on for 5, 7, 10 years, and you've just been covering it up or having these creative hairstyles where the part is getting further and further, wearing weaves, you know, you are just hiding the problem. We have to get to the problem. And yes, there can be some fear associated with it. I mean, everyone comes in and says, like, alopecia. Alopecia just means hair loss. But as Dr. Yolanda mentioned, there are many, 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 many different types of hair loss. And we have to make the diagnosis, get you on a treatment plan. And while we may not be able to get you back to ground zero, we can stop the progression of the process and hopefully get some of those hair follicles to work again. And we have so many more treatments these days than we did 10 years ago. And so, you know, I think all of us are very excited about some of the new developments. And so don't be afraid, just come and let us help you.
I'd also like to say, don't be afraid, and also don't be ashamed. You know, like, hair loss affects everyone of every walk, of every socioeconomic background, of every race. It's not your fault, you know? And I think a lot of patients will beat themselves up, and they'll just hide, or they'll do protective styles, as we said, to hide, and they're guilty, and they don't want to admit to their dermatologist that this is what we did. I guarantee you're not the first. You won't be the last. I guarantee you're likely not the worst. And part of why we have poor outcomes again is because we're presenting later, and our treatments are much better at preserving the hair than bringing it back if it's too far gone. So don't guilt yourself. It's not your fault. It happens to everyone. This is what we do. We will not be surprised. So, readily kind of engage, and that relationship can really help you tremendously.
Wow. I mean, I think I have learned so much because, like, look at me, right? I'm using these terms, protective styling. I get braids often, repeatedly sometimes. And a lot of women, we feel like we can just braid, 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 encourage hair growth and wash less. And that is not accurate. So, all of the things that me alone that I just learned. So let's, before we get off of this topic, how about the wigs? We mentioned edges and losing edges. This is a result of that. What do you honestly say to women who are frequent wig wearers to work every day, vacation, whatever it is, that's our go-to. What would you say in regards to that as well?
I think it's okay to use wigs as a part of rotational styling. So, for example, some of my patients, their hair loss is so severe that they really don't have enough hair remaining to cover up the area of hair loss. And so sometimes I will encourage them, instead of doing a sew and weave, instead of doing these braids that people can do now to cover these huge areas of scarring hair loss, I would encourage them to do wigs for a period of time. An important tip is you want to make sure you are protecting your hair underneath the wig. The fibers underneath the wig can be very abrasive and they can provide a lot of friction against the edges. So I
Mhm,
encourage patients to get a silk or satin wig cap, not the nylon stocking caps. Those can be very, very abrasive. And then there's
mhm,
something that you can buy called a hair grip. It's like a velvet headband that would sit along your edges, and then the wig would lay on top of that so that the wig itself is not laying against your edges. So, those are some of the things that can be done. But as my colleague said, we really want to diagnose you early so that you don't have to wear wigs all of the time. But we will meet you where you are. And based on where you are, we're going to make recommendations based on where you are in the process. Because I think some people just give up and they
mhm,
still have enough hair that we can really get you to a point where we you can wear your own hair, because I think
mhm.
that's everyone's goal, is to wear their hair. But
It
if you
is.
can't wear your hair, we can tell you about safer options that you won't make the problem worse.
Mhm.
The other thing I would say about hair is you have to have patience, right? So hair is about 3 months behind real time. It's not real time. And so often when I have patients come in, and for example, there's a condition called telogen effluvium, which is often related to stress. And patients will say, well, I don't know what's going on. My hair is falling out. I'm like, okay, great. What was happening 3 months ago?
Mhm,
You're like, oh,
mhm,
I had surgery. Okay, well, that's why it's reactive to the surgery. And so when we started treatment for hair, we just have to be consistent. And typically, we, or at least I do, and I'm sure we all do, evaluate at 3 month intervals, quarterly intervals, because nothing
mhm,
is going to happen next week except for maybe not having dandruff, right?
mhm. Right.
So you have to hang in there and you have to realize that your hair loss didn't happen overnight. And so it's not going to go away. It's not going to improve overnight. We really
Mhm,
have to take this kind of in quarterly chunks as far as treatment process.
mhm, mhm. Wow. Anything, Dr. Renee, that you wanted to add?
That's
Okay.
pretty.
Dr. Michelle, anything that you wanted to add?
In the background.
Okay.
I mean, I agree. Something that I often tell my patients that wear wigs as well, and I agree, it should be rotational. You should think about your scalp, but we also have to consider what's practical for patients. And if you have so much hair loss that you feel like you can't present yourself into a world that makes you feel confident, that's what these things are here for. Um,
Mhm,
so just finding a way to do it responsibly. So sometimes for patients, I like the silk line caps as well. Sometimes they can be a little hard to find. I know there are some they're becoming more common. Sometimes I'll have my patients just stitch satin inside of their wig because that
mhm,
lace inside the wig with curly hair is kind of like Velcro, and it's just
mhm.
ripping the hair. So that's a little cheat that sometimes I will recommend to my patients. But yeah, I'm echoing a lot of what everyone says because those are kind of our basic points. It's all about,
Mhm.
each follicle is made to hold the hairs that it's made to hold, and the additional pressure is you're weakening it, you're damaging it, and what happens when we have damage? We have inflammation, then we have permanent hair loss, and we can
Oh,
minimize that by doing that rotation. The beauty of our versatility is making sure that we find other things that we can do, so those follicles are never carrying that weight for longer than they can sustain.
wow. So much knowledge to gain and getting us a lot of women back on the right track. We touched bases a little bit on alopecia And just kind of to jump a little bit back into skin, I know it's, a little bit of both, but we want to cover everything. How about hyperpigmentation? That was a big one. That was a big, overwhelming question. What we can learn from a dermatologist in terms of hyperpigmentation causes, things like that, because that's a big struggle for a lot of women.
So the proper term is called post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. And I bring that up
Mm,
because a lot of patients like, well, I want to take care of my dark spots. I'm like, but we have a face full of acne. So we got to work on this
let's
first.
go there first.
If we do not take care of your acne or your eczema, we are never going to make any headroom on your post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So
Mm,
it's related to something. And that gets back to one of your first questions about what is the difference between darker skin.
mm-hmm,
Everyone, melanocytes are the cells that produce pigment. Everyone on this earth has the same number of pigment producing cells.
mm-hmm,
Melanosomes are little packages of pigment. And so often with brown skin, we have more melanosomes. The melanosomes are scattered throughout the entire epidermis. And so that is what often creates the tone of our skin. And so when we have inflammatory processes, acne, eczema, seborrheic dermatitis, it will cause our pigment producing cells to make more pigment. And so it is reactive to trauma. When you scratch at something, when you pick at something, if you fall down and scrape your knee, you have surgery, an irritant, your jeans are too tight and they're rubbing on your waist or your bra line, so all of these things that irritate brown skin result in post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So that is never going to go away until we take care of what caused it.
mm,
I would also say I think post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation is the most common type of hyperpigmentation I see in my office. But there's another type of kind of hyperpigmentation we see more often in women of color called melasma, and that could be due to our hormones. Sometimes we call it the mask of pregnancy because a lot of women will see it during pregnancy, and we kind of see it in the mid face.
mm-hmm,
Kind of characteristically, it will sometimes spare direct area around the eyes, but we definitely see it in the mid face and on the cheeks. We sometimes rarely see it in men. And it's probably, in my experience, one of the toughest types to treat. It could be quite persnickety. It's sensitive to heat. Heat even does it. Different sources of light can do it, and obviously your hormones. But because we have more pigment in our background, it's more difficult and more common. So it's something to think about as well. And that's why it's really important to see your dermatologist so we can figure out the cause. Because just like Dr. Brooks said, what's important is that the pigment is a consequence of something. And
mm-hmm.
it's our job to figure out whatever that something is.
And one more thing for Dr. Michelle is making sure with melasma, it's super common, but Black people need to wear sunscreen.
Absolutely.
So
Oh my gosh.
we've
Yeah, I realize I know nothing. Please continue.
So there's a misperception that people who've got brown skin don't need to wear sunscreen. I mean, both Dr. Michelle and I have treated skin cancers. I've written 4 big chapters on skin cancer and skin of color. It happens. Bob Marley died of a melanoma. It happens. And sadly, a lot of times for delayed diagnosis, poor prognosis. There's a particular type of skin cancer that is more common in brown people called squamous cell carcinoma, and it tends to occur where the sun does not shine. So it is not always sun that causes skin cancer. With that said, brown people also tend to have high blood pressure, diabetes, be on medications and make you more sun sensitive. And then they come in our offices wondering why they've got this discoloration and brown patches on their skin because they've never worn sunscreen because they were told they didn't have to because they've got brown skin and will never burn. And so it is this huge cycle. Like, where's the sunscreen, people?
Yeah.
So that's a whole other conversation about how to choose a sunscreen, but it is absolutely a part of the skincare regimen. And for me, it's it's a hard stop. If someone is not willing to wear sunscreen, then we're not going to get much further as far as the regimen or the conversation about taking care of the hyperpigmentation. So you got to do it, people. Just do it. Do it.
And I always say that if I can't really appeal to your sense of overall health, let me appeal to your vanity. So there are many health reasons why we should use sunscreen, but it's also going to slow down accelerated aging. part of how we do age as women of color, we may not get wrinkles as readily, but we do get like dyspigmentation and hyperpigmentation, and sunscreen is going to help with all of that. So it's going to keep you healthy and beautiful. So many reasons to use your sunscreen.
Wow. Are you today years old learning all of this too,
Well,
or?
look, I'm telling you, every once in a while in my role at Black Doctors, I handle all of our programming, and so I'm the one that does all the producing and try to get people to be on this panel. And I was excited about the people that said that they agreed to be on this panel, and y'all have not disappointed. I promise you,
Oh
y'all.
my
This
gosh.
could be 3 hours of straight, and the comments are coming in, and the comments are supportive of that. So I would just say, make an appointment with your dermatologist. I know they want to. I know they want to ask y'all so many different questions because it's rare, and this is a rare opportunity. We have three wonderful dermatologists on a panel where you can ask questions. But the number one thing is try to find a dermatologist locally there in your area and see them. If you're experiencing hair loss, if you're having that. Uh, Dr. Brooks, you said a whole lot, but the hyperpigmentation, everything you said, the
Yeah.
non-inflammatory, all that go see a dermatologist. The bottom line is go see a dermatologist, and that should be part of your normal annual regime. I do want to take a brief pause and say happy birthday to Dr. Yolanda.
Happy
Thank you
birthday.
for taking the time out
Yeah.
on your vacation to be on this panel, and we cannot state enough that how thankful you are for everybody being on this panel, particularly because she's in Hawaii, so that time change. It's early in the morning over there, so thank you for that. Um, I also, and we got just a little bit of time left. We want to make sure that people can get in contact with you. If they want to follow you on social media, if they want to get those tips, and I know a lot of you all write articles or are really engaged on social media. So I want to make sure that people get that information so they can reach out and follow and say, okay, I can't see Dr. Yolanda because I don't live in Massachusetts, but I know she's got some good stuff and she's got some great articles, so I can look for her stuff and how and where she's writing. And so, if you would please share how people can get in contact you if they want to follow you, or how they can follow you on social media or on the internet out there.
I'll get started. I'm Dr. Michelle Henry. I'm at Dr. Michelle Henry on most platforms. My most visited platform is Instagram. I'm also on TikTok, where I am skin.talks. And then my practice website is Skin and Aesthetic Surgery of Manhattan. You can reach me there. I'm very responsive on all platforms. I love to answer questions. I love to hear about your experiences. So I look forward to seeing all of you.
I am at Dr. Yolanda Lindsay on most platforms as well. And I also have a book. If you would like to learn more about hair loss, it's called Getting to the Root, a dermatologist and cosmetologist guide to understanding hair. Because I'm also a licensed cosmetologist. I did that in my former life before college. And you can check that out on Amazon. And yeah, so we'll definitely want to share with you guys a resource because I see in the comments people wanted to find a Black dermatologist. One of my colleagues created a wonderful website called blackdermdirectory.com, blackdermdirectory.com, and you can search for dermatologists by zip code. And that is a great resource for I think all of us are on there and our other colleagues as well. And there's not one of us in every city. Just wanted to highlight that we make up only 3% of the nation's dermatologists. So for many of our patients, they have to travel. People come to see me from all of the New England states and other places as well through social media. So definitely don't be afraid to take the time to invest in yourself and travel to get the help that you need because that person may not be in your local community, unfortunately. But we're working on that with mentorship and trying to increase the pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I am in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Durham Research Triangle area. You can follow me across all social media at Dr. Brooke Durham. I also wrote a book last summer, which was published #1 on Amazon, Skincare for Runners, because I'm a runner, done 10 marathons, so I love to take care of skin as far as athletes. And I have another book coming out, hopefully on Mother's Day, on skincare for your adopted child, because I'm an adopted mother of 3. So follow me across all social media, and I would love to connect with you.
Thank you.
That I mean, writing books. I mean, y'all are just fantastic. I love this panel. Um, because you all kept it so real, and you're right, we're all out there. I mean, I wish I'd have got that messaging a lot earlier. Maybe I still have some hair on my head, but we're not going to talk about that because it's not about me right now. But I will say this is that what we have to do is have that what you're talking about is having that comprehensive approach, right? So some mindset changes that I heard throughout this entire program. Number one, your skin is an organ, right? And so we have to treat it as such. Number two, your skin is reflective of what you are doing in your body. Whether you're putting in bad fuel, if you're putting bad food in, guess what? Your skin is going to be reflective of that. Your hair is going to be reflective of that. So you're going to get you're going to get maybe a 3 months lag on some things, but you're going to get some responses on what you're doing in your life. If you're not exercising enough, if you're not eating enough, if you've got too much stress hormones in your body, that's going to impact your skin and your hair. So we got to make sure you recognize that. Number three, or number four, I'm losing count, but number three or four, what you also have to do is you can't just go out there hit or miss in terms of hair loss, right? Because there are so many different types of alopecia. So the first thing you should do, and I love the way Dr. Lindsay say, invest in a dermatologist, right? Spend your money on getting a dermatologist. Don't spend your money on these products. Because I saw coconut oil. I even tried that too. So FYI, when I was going through my hair loss, I was heating up coconut oil and rubbing it on my head. I've done it. So I'm speaking from personal experience. Please go see a dermatologist first, get the diagnosis, and then work on a comprehensive plan. Another thing I heard that I loved was don't be so brand dependent. You know, Black folks as a people, we are brand loyal. You know, we got our mayonnaise, we got our ketchup, we got our this, our that we continue to go with. But if we keep being brand loyal, we might not get the best products for us. So mix up the products, do what works best for you. After you get that diagnosis from your dermatologist, I'm gonna keep banging that drum. After you get the diagnosis, so you know what type of skin, what works best for you. You're working with your dermatologist. You can mix and match those products to find out what's best for you. We're going to kill the protective hairstyles. That's it. It is official. January 16th, we're no longer going to use that term protective hairstyle.
News of the day. News of the day.
That is it. We're going to use rotative. We're going to rotate our hairstyle. And also, finally, we're going to wash our hair more regularly. We cannot continue to go months without washing our hair. We've got to give that scalp. We've got to cleanse it. And we've got to continue to keep our largest organ very, very clean, healthy, and happy.
Amazing.
Great summary.
So, look, I learned a lot. I'm just watching for the background.
I mean, I can imagine. I think women across the country are like,
That's
are
why
you
we're the
kidding?
most important doctors. Seriously.
y'all can drop the mic. I mean, so we got to have. So when the books come out, we got to have you back. So Dr. Brooke, Dr. Michelle, we definitely have to have you back. Definitely have to have you back. Because I know there's some months, there's some skincare. We're going to just have y'all back on a regular basis because we need to have these conversations, particularly as the season changes. We didn't even get in talk about that, right?
We have to have more.
As the seasons change, we have to change our routine sometimes because summertime we can get more oily, wintertime we can get more dry. If you're using the same product, you're not going to get the same results. We know that. So what are some of the things we should be doing as the weather changes, particularly where we live in certain regions of the country? It's drier. Some of them, like I'm from Florida, humidity is where it's at down in Florida. So you know that's going to impact your hair and your skin. So there's so many different things we want to touch on. So we got to have y'all back. I know they're clamoring for you in the comment section to have each one of you back. So thank you again. We got to move on to the next panel. The next panel is Black people in pain. Assumptions, expectations, and outcomes. And what we're really going to be talking about is how Black people are underdiagnosed when it comes to pain. And what is that? What implications does that have on health? What implications does that have on how we engage in the healthcare system with the healthcare system? Because if we go there, we're presenting with pain, and they say, "Oh, it's not that bad; it's in your head," or they give you some Tylenol that's not effective. How likely are you going to go back to see the doctor? And so that's really it's a focus point because when you have pain, that's when a lot of people run into the doctor, and if that experience is not good, that's going to diminish that ability to go back into the doctor. It's going to lengthen that time between you go see them, and that pain could linger, or you could be missing something that's more significant because you had a bad experience on that. So we're going to talk about pain, and it comes to Black people. Then later on, we're going to be talking about, hey, we got a show on caregiving, how to caregive for our aging parents and children, and then finally, we're going to be talking about diet tips and weight loss and how to keep those resolutions throughout the year. So we already talked about what you put in your body is going to impact your skin and hair. So you want to watch that panel we've got later on today. So thank you all again for joining us. This was so fantastic.
Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
Mindy, you were fantastic as a
Thank
hostess.
you.
Dr. Yolanda, go enjoy the rest of your vacation. Dr.
Yes.
Michelle, thank you so much. I know Manhattan is well handled right now. And Dr. Brooke, you're always a rock star when you come on here. So thank you again. We'll see you at the top of the hour for the next panel.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.